Most people think being loved in conversations is about saying the right things, but it's actually about asking the right questions. And let's be honest, the reason your conversations feel pointless or awkward is because you're either asking the wrong questions at the wrong time or the right questions in the wrong way. So today, you and I are going to fix that. Because if you know what to ask and how to ask, people will open up to you in a way they almost never do. And yes, there's actual psychology behind this. In fact, follow-up questions alone are so powerful that researchers found they're the #1 predictor of a second date. Not height, not looks, just questions. So if you want people to like you more, trust you more, and even feel emotionally connected to you, here are 13 questions that will make people love you. But careful, ask these to your friends and they might want to start sticking around you. All right, let's begin. All right, question 1. What are you most excited about right now? Simple, easy to answer, but here's why this works. Most people ask, how's it going, and get fine or busy. Dead end, boring. But when you ask what they're excited about, you're directing their brain towards something positive.
And when they recall something good, dopamine releases. They feel good. And guess what? They associate that good feeling with you. Plus, whatever they say gives you so much to work with. If they say, I'm finally starting that side project, boom, now you can follow up. Which brings us to the most important thing you need to understand about questions. It's not the first question that matters most. It's what you do after. Let me introduce you to Patricia and Alejandro. They're on a first date. Patricia says, I'm so looking forward to next weekend. Now, Alejandro has two options. He can say, oh, cool, and move on. Or he can do this. You're looking forward to next weekend? He repeats her words back. This is called the echo technique. What are you most excited about? Boom, he took the bait. And here's the thing. Researchers at UC Berkeley analyzed thousands of first dates to figure out what made people want to see each other again. Height.
Sure, looks, yeah. But the #1 factor? The degree to which someone asked follow-up questions. Not just any questions, follow-ups. Because follow-ups signal one thing. You're actually listening. But here's where most people screw this up. They ask a follow-up, but it's the wrong kind. They ask about facts, not feelings. So here's question 2. How did that feel? Or what did you love about that? Let's say someone tells you they went skydiving last month. Most people say, oh wow, that's cool, and move on. But if you ask, what was going through your mind when you jumped? Or how did it feel in that moment? Now you're having a real conversation. You're not just collecting information, you're exploring emotion. And emotion is what creates connection. Now, asking about feelings is powerful, but you can't just ask anyone anything. You have to understand there are always two conversations happening.
There's the surface level, what someone's actually saying out loud. And then there's the underlying material, the stuff they're hinting at but not saying directly. That's where their values live, their desires, the things they actually want to talk about but are scared to bring up because they think no one will listen. Your job is to catch that bait and follow up on it. So here's question 3. Tell me more about that. That's it. 4 words. But when someone mentions something and you say, tell me more about that, you're giving them permission to go deeper. And most people never get that permission. Let me give you an example. Someone says, I usually try to travel once a year. Most people hear that and think it's just a fact, but it's not. It's bait. They're hoping you'll ask where they've been, why they love it, and what it means to them. So you ask, where have you been? What do you love about traveling? And now they're telling you about the time they were 18 and their parents didn't let them do anything. So traveling became their way of breaking free. See how that works? You went from surface level to underlying material in 2 questions.
That's the game. All right, so you're following up, you're catching bait, you're going deeper. But here's something most people don't realize. You can't ask just any deep question at any time. You have to build to it, because people will only reveal personal stuff if they feel safe. And safety is built gradually. So here's question 4. What got you into that? This is safe. You're not asking anything too personal. You're just asking for a story. And stories reveal everything. Maybe they got into running because they were going through a breakup. Maybe they started cooking because their grandma taught them. You're learning about their past, their values, their relationships, all through one simple question. Now, starting safe is step one. But if you want real connection, you need to go beyond safe. You need to enter the 5 emotional zones. These are the 5 topics that make people light up when you ask about them. Zone 1, experiences. Question 5,
What's been your favorite experience lately? Not what have you been up to? That's boring. You're asking for their favorite. And then you follow up. What made it so good? Or what did you love about it? You're focusing on the emotion, not just the event. Zone 2, dreams. Question 6, what's something you've always wanted to do? And then follow up with, how would it feel to actually do that? Or what's stopping you? When someone shares a dream, they're being vulnerable. They're showing you something that matters. And when you ask how it would feel, you're telling them you care. Zone 3, hobbies. Question 7, what do you absolutely love doing? And then dig in. What do you love about it? How do you feel when you're doing that? Let's say they say drawing. You could say, what do you love about drawing? Do you get into that zone where time just disappears? Now you're not just asking about an activity, you're asking about the feeling behind it. And that's what people remember.
Zone 4, passions. Question 8, what are you most passionate about right now? And then follow up, what makes you so passionate about it? When someone talks about their passion, their whole energy shifts. They talk faster, their eyes light up. Psychology calls this intrinsic motivation. You're tapping into something they genuinely care about, and that's magnetic. Zone 5, motivations. Question 9, what made you decide to do that? Or why was that important to you? These questions get to the why. And when you understand someone's why, you understand them on a completely different level. Okay, so now you know the 5 zones. But here's the thing. You can't just jump into what's your deepest fear on the first question. You'll scare people off. There's this famous study called The 36 Questions That Lead to Love.
2 strangers sit down and ask each other a set of questions. One group just makes small talk. The other asks the 36 questions. And the group with the questions, they liked each other more, wanted to meet again. 2 of them even got married. But here's the key. The questions were in 3 sets. Set 1 was chill. If you could have dinner with anyone, who would it be? Set 2 got deeper. What's your greatest accomplishment? Set 3 was intimate. Tell your partner something you like about them. You start safe, then you build. That's how connection works. Now, asking great questions is powerful, but sometimes someone's going to throw a curveball at you. Maybe you're in a job interview and they ask, what did you get paid at your last job? Trap question. If you avoid it, you look like you're hiding something. If you answer honestly, you might get lowballed. So what do?
Here's question 10. You deflect with a relevant question. Can you tell me more about the salary range for this position? You're not avoiding, you're redirecting. And then you keep the conversation flowing until you can change the topic. Same thing if your wife asks, do I look good in this? You could say, what do you think? Dangerous territory, but you get the idea. The key is to stay relevant. Don't say, what did you have for breakfast? That's just weird. All right, here's another mistake people make. They ask questions that assume the wrong thing. Let's say you're buying a used phone. You want to know if it's broken. Most people ask, it doesn't have any problems, does it? Bad move. That's super easy for the seller to say, nope, no problems. But if you assume there are problems and ask question 11, what problems does it have? Now they actually have to think. They can't just say no. And this doesn't hurt rapport. It shows you're smart and direct. So if you're ending a presentation, don't ask, you don't have any questions, do you? Ask, what questions do you have? If you're viewing an apartment, don't ask, how are the neighbors? Ask, have previous tenants complained about noise? Now here's something wild. Questions act like spotlights. They guide where people's attention goes. So if you ask question 12, what's been going well for you lately, you're shining the spotlight on the positive. And when people think about good things, dopamine releases. They feel good, and they link that feeling to you. But if you ask what's stressing you out, You're shining the spotlight on stress. So be intentional. Where you point the spotlight matters. And finally, question 13. This one's a cheat code. What's something you wish more people asked you about? Most people spend their whole lives answering the same boring questions, but there's always something they wish they could talk about that no one ever brings up. Maybe it's a project, maybe it's a trip, maybe it's a perspective. When you ask this, you're giving them permission to talk about what actually matters, and that creates a bond instantly. Oh, and one more bonus. If you want someone in a position of authority to like you more, ask them for advice. Can I get your advice on something? Sounds counterintuitive, right? But there was a study at Harvard that showed people who asked for advice were seen as more competent, not less. Why? Because asking for advice signals you value their opinion, it strokes their ego, and people like you more when you make them feel valued. Just make sure it's something you actually know about. Don't ask your boss for advice on rocket science unless they're Elon Musk. Here's the thing. These aren't magic spells. You can't just memorize them and expect miracles. But what they do is change how you show up. Instead of waiting for your turn to talk, you're genuinely curious. Instead of collecting facts, you're exploring feelings. And when people feel heard, they remember you. Not because of what you said, because of how you made them feel. You're not awkward. You just didn't know the right questions. Drop a love emoji if this hit you. And if you want to know how to keep conversations going without it feeling forced, the next video breaks that down. Peace.